Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Katie Byron, production designer on Showtime's series The Curse. Katie, this is from the minds of Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie. So we know right off the bat we're in for a wild ride. What were those early conversations like with them when you talked about this town of Espanola, New Mexico, and what was it like collaborating with them?
Well, I was kind of like you, where I was really excited to just see them act with each other. My first meeting with them was, well, my inner aside from my interview, was just sort of like watching this ping pong ball go back and forth between these two like charismatic, weird geniuses. Like their brains just working together was one of the most incredible things to sort of like witness. Um, and and part of like, our first initial conversations were really about the passive house and what that looks like and how real it should be and how much research we should put into it. And Nathan was very much very excited to nail it. He wanted to make sure that we really did that justice, that we researched it and really understood what all of the workings of the passive home would be to bring it into our set builds. And but of course, like working with the two of them is all about getting your feet on the ground and navigating the world and seeing things you want to bring into the comedy and the set design and the writing. And so it was really like a very unique collaborative process, just because it felt like we were really sort of finding things as we were going and building the world, which had to be very real. So we wanted to learn about Espanola before we really cracked into the design. We wanted to learn about Santa Fe before we really cracked into that design. So yeah, it was a real wacky and amazing collaboration.
Well, and I think some people were surprised or maybe surprised to learn that like those passive homes are real. So how close to the design of actual passive homes is yours? Especially those outside mirrored. I mean, that's the most striking part of it to me is those mirrored walls.
I don't think anyone's done a passive home with any mirrored technology before. We the first conversation we had about what the passive home could look like, Benny really loved this like Doug Aitken's Mirror House as a reference, and just thought it'd be so amazing. It would be this way to, reflect the neighborhood. And is there any way we can prove that these mirrors function as like an energy like storing device? And so Nathan was very reluctant at first to go in that direction, because he was like, no, I think it's too much. I think, it'll break from reality of what these are. And then of course, Benny, who's an expert at like searching the internet for things, found that actually in a part of New Mexico, they were developing this technology, which was a mirror that is technically a solar panel. So we decided to sort of take this idea and bring it into this house. So yeah, nobody's actually doing this yet, but it was like enough of reality where we could take this concept and feel okay with it. But as far as like, the interior and the windows that we built were all passive home style, with the triple locking mechanisms and the, triple pane glass. And there's like a suction when you close each window. The doors were also these like really heavy duty doors we constructed to the standards of passive houses. And yeah, there's a lot of like details in the actual build that are very accurate for passive home construction. Because part of it was like, there is a scene in the first episode where, they're walking around explaining all of the
Yeah.
passive home details. So we had to make those things right.
And I know mirrors and reflection, speaking with like the cinematographer and visual effects, they say that that can be nightmares for them. So how do you collaborate with them or keep that in mind? Or do you just have to create and say, sorry, this is a problem for you to solve?
Well, luckily we were working with Maceo Bishop, who's like the most charming, kind
Yeah.
cinematographer out there. And he's magical in the way that he's very quiet and like observant, and he's really like a yes man. And of course, like working with Benny, it's like, Benny has this idea like mirrored houses, and everyone from the beginning wanted to dissuade Benny to do the mirrored houses because of, what we're saying, like camera and the cost, and how are we going to do it in time, and how are we going to pull it off, and is it going to burn the neighborhood down? And I think that Maceo is just like, I'll figure it out. We'll hide camera with whatever it is we need to. We had some set pieces built for him, we had like an electrical box that he could like be inside or behind. We had shrubs. We had our like a lot of the fence work we could play with. But I think that those guys, and I speak about all of them together, or all of us, it was really about, we were okay with the limitations of camera because of the way that the film is shot in this voyeuristic way. You could really hide. So it's like if you see camera sees itself in the reflection, well, then maybe you can just be behind something, looking in. So I think that that lent itself well. But none of the mirrors were gimbalable. We couldn't afford it. It was like we made the most nightmarish thing for a cinematographer to work with ever.
Well, I have to talk about that final episode, The Green Queen, which is gravity defying, and it's terrifying and funny simultaneously. How talk about building that set of the room where he's upside down, because my understanding is you had to build a right side up and an upside down set. And they basically have to match, and everything's measured out equally. So explain that process, and that would had to be something that was new for you.
Yeah, I mean, Rachel Ferrara and I, the set decorator we work with, she had done an upside down set before. Because, in music videos or commercials, like we tend to, do things like this. But yeah, it was new for me. And the first thing that when I first started the project, all episodes weren't written, but I did know that it ended with this last scene, where we needed to build an upside down room. So we built the upside down room and the right side up room. The design of the space was really like, inspired by, like, I don't know if you ever had these like childhood dreams where you would like put your feet up, and like you'd lay in bed and put your feet up and you pretend you were on the ceiling. I feel like it's something that like I think some of us weird ones did, but like I, I remember thinking like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to like, then I can kick the fan around, or then I could like, what would my orientation be like if this room was upside down? So when designing the master bedroom, part of like the design came from what would be the most fun space to turn upside down. And I was actually in my house in Santa Fe, and they're the Vega beams that run in every house in Santa Beams, those like, big wooden beams. I thought like, oh, that would be really fun. Like, he can like hold on to them, and maybe the ceiling slopes. So there's like a little bit of like, jungle gymnast to it. And the bookshelves can be all built in so that he can like crawl on them, and just trying to make the most like fun space for this upside down set. Um, and then of course the problem is I sort of over designed, or not over designed, but made the upside down set too too eccentric, so that actually filming in it was difficult. Like the floor was at an angle, so it was like we had to pull the floor out if we needed to get a scissor lift in. We had to sort of scissor lift people in, so because they couldn't really walk on it because it wasn't safe. So it was a real like, it was really 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 a fun problem to solve. And yeah, we worked with this, our stunt team was awesome. And yeah, it was, we essentially, how we built it is we built the regular right setup one first, And then we built like a rotisserie for like elements, like the floor then was shifted up in the air with the rotisserie rigged by the grips and then put up in the air, and then walls were brought in. And then we could do little work with like ladders and scissor lifts, but most of it was actually built on the ground and then rotated up.
It's one of the most fascinating episodes of TV of the year by far to me. It was like mind blowing. So what was it like for you when you saw the finished episode compared to what when you're actually building it?
I mean, it was like, yeah, it was, I understood. I mean, I think we all understood the intention of why everything, like with the stunt rigs from the beginning, everyone pitched Benny and Nathan like simpler ideas, you know, how to cut together, how to like use VFX, and it was very much like a a real like a real point that we wanted it to happen all in camera and shot in the same way as the rest of the series. And you know, we don't want it to all of a sudden be like lots of cuts
Yeah.
and edited differently. So I think, you know, one of the things that I really loved is when people, we weren't able to reveal how we did it until 4 weeks ago. And so many people were writing me and were like, how did you do it? Like, you know, just because it's like, I feel like you're looking for the strings and you're looking for, when you work in film, you know, all the tricks. And I think you know, we did some unconventional things that were maybe a bit more pricey or difficult to maneuver around, but I think that created that sense that it was real. I think that was like, you know, watching it, you're like, it does feel real. It doesn't slip into absurdism or surrealism because you're like, this
No.
is so real. It's strange.
What was your intention with just the general interior design of how the houses looked inside? You know, Emma Stone plays Whitney. She's sort of this controlling character, and she has a very clear vision of how she likes things. You can sort of feel her rage even when someone replaces a stove she doesn't like. So, talk about just the basic interior design and finding the intention behind that.
Well, right off the bat, I really saw Whitney as, yeah, being like very much like type A, don't mess with my designs. There's a real layout to the way that the house is like, you know, all of the houses have like a singular layout that works for them. You can only put a couch in a certain place. You can only put a bed in a certain place. A lot of the built-ins kind of maintain that like feeling of restriction. And that, yeah, like it's like she's so firm on her aesthetics and her path that there's really no wiggle room. There's no like, you know, skimping out or changing things. And I think it also like, you know, I also thought like this, comparing the stage house versus like her real house, and like that was one of the things I kind of like sat with for a bit is like, how could those two be how could they be different? Or in what ways would they be different? And I thought someone like Whitney might like actually be presenting herself as staged as all time. So it's like her house can feel as staged as the Palmer house. And so like wanting it to feel like even Asher doesn't really have a place. Like I think there was one point where I was like, maybe we put his rolled up socks by the, you know, the living room couch, just to give him a little bit of something. And then you imagine like, you know, that would drive her crazy, or like when Dougie gets blueberries on the couch, you know, it's just like everything has a place, everything has a way, and like she really wants to be known as easygoing, but like her environment really shows just how controlling she is.
One of the things that fascinates me about production design is that, I mean, you have to just fill the space with every tiny little detail. And so I thought it was fascinating when I read one of your favorite things to do was actually stocking Whitney and Esther's pantry.
Oh yeah.
So can you talk about that? What do they like to have in their pantry and why?
Yeah, well, oh, that was really good. Well, there's also a scene where we don't really see it so much, but there's a scene where Asher is packing up food for Abshir and Nala's house and in their, so it's like we see him getting to pull out this stuff, which was really exciting. Um, but yeah, I think you can tell a lot about someone based on what's in their pantry. It's kind of like it was very, it's like these two live in Espanola, which is sort of a food desert. There's a couple major grocery stores, but there's no Whole Foods, there's no like farmers market. I don't think there's a farmers market. There could be now, but um, it's the food that it's clear that like she's really like wants to live in Espanola and like she wants to say like I'm 100% living in Espanola, but it's clear that she drives to Santa Fe to get food from Sprouts and Whole Foods and you know and spends money in that way on these luxury grocery items when she's supposed to be like this advocate for her town that she's into. um and the Me Foodie delivery meal is kind
Yeah.
of like that too. It's like instead of going to eat at a local restaurant, it's like they have these like services that are probably from you know Denver and flown out, using emissions and just like I think one of the things that I've been saying is like there's a lot of like inside jokes about consumerism and trends that to me are jokes, but like also just are the way people live. I mean, the idea that like, a lot of the food that is like in their pantries, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I guess I can't say any more of that, but I loved like figuring out those details.
Well, there's just so much to take in. I mean, every time you watch any episode, there's just more and more to see. And I really thought it was one of the most inventive, wonderful series on TV this year. So congratulations on your incredible work on The Curse, and good luck to you and the whole cast and crew this Emmy season. And thanks for sitting down with Gold Derby today.
Oh my God, thank you so much. And like I said, you guys are the greatest to talk to. So really appreciate the interest. Thanks for watching our show.